and welcome. This is Dick Lee. In this lecture, we're going to define value innovation, look at its genesis, and the benefits that accrue. Let's take a look at the key points that we'll establish in this lecture. First, there are at least 14 forms of innovation being practiced today, and that leads to confusion, as you might imagine. The term value innovation was first used by Kim and Maubon, two professors in INSEAD in France, in 1997. Blue Ocean Strategy, written by those same two professors, was published in 2005, and it's built on the value innovation platform. We'll look at the definition of value innovation and the benefits that accrue, and we'll take a look at the book Value Innovation Works, which was published in 2012. It starts where Blue Ocean Strategy stops. So there are the 14 forms of innovation. Here are the books. They are in abundance, published by professors for the most part at universities around the world. But the one that we're focused on is Blue Ocean Strategy and its successor book, Value Innovation Works. Blue Ocean Strategy, and you can see W. Chan Kim and Renee Maubon in the bottom left-hand corner there, the authors. Their thesis was this, that many companies are in competition, competing in the same market space, beating each other up, their blood is spilt, and so the oceans they're swimming in run red. It's gruesome, isn't it? They proposed the solution to this problem was render the competition irrelevant and go create and swim in a blue ocean. This book is the fastest selling book in the history of Harvard Business School Press, and it's available in 42 languages. So back to those 14 forms of innovation again. The book Value Innovation Works, and I'm one of the co-authors of the book, is built on the Value Innovation platform. So where did value innovation come from? What's its genesis? When we look back, we think that C.K. Prahalad is the grandfather of all of this. C.K. is an Indian, born and raised in India, and he ultimately became the dean of the business school at the University of Michigan. He had some very bright students, and they worked for him, W. Chan Kim, Gary Hamel, and Konstantinos Markadis, and they were publishing papers in the middle 1990s. There was a group at the Industrial Research Institute, and I should share the Industrial Research Institute was formed back in 1938. There were 13 member companies at that time. It was formed because Maurice Holland, the founder of the organization, had a vision, and that was that the United States would be going to war with Germany, and it would be advantageous if, in fact, some of the key R&D organizations in the United States collaborated. That was in violation of the antitrust laws in the United States at the time, but the U.S. government looked beyond it, and the IRI was formed. 3 of those original member companies are still members today: General Electric, Procter & Gamble, and Universal Oil Products. There were a group of the 250 member companies at that time who looked at value creation through value innovation for the period 1999 to 2002. In fact, there were 4 groups who were working at that time, and over 40 IRI member companies participated. Blue Ocean Strategy, the summation of the work that W. Chan Kim and Renee Maubon published, was published in 2005. The paper, Value Innovation, Passport to Wealth Creation, which summarized the results of that work that was carried out at the Industrial Research Institute, was also published in 2005. The company, Value Innovations Incorporated, has worked with more than 300 companies since that same year. And the book, Value Innovation Works, was published in 2012. So Blue Ocean Strategy is built on the Value Innovation platform. Unfortunately, it lacks a process, and it doesn't share how you go from step to step. Where do I start? Where do I go next? This book, Value Innovation Works, starts where Blue Ocean Strategy stops. There is a value innovation process. There's 10 steps. and it provides a set of enabling tools and shows you where to start and where to go next. So here's that book, Value Innovation Works. It's available through Amazon.com, and the list price is $24.95. What is value innovation? It is delivering exceptional value to the most important customer in the value chain all the time, every time. It's so important, I'm going to say that again. Delivering exceptional value to the most important customer in the value chain all the time, every time. And when we think of most important customers, we automatically think of customers outside our organization. But those customers can also be inside. So if you work in a functional area like human resources or IT or finance, your customers are inside the organization, and you can deliver greater value to them, and you can use the value innovation process to help you do that. How can we deliver this value? Well, it can come in many ways, and here are some examples. It could be through a new business model, a new way of packaging your product or service, a new way of delivering it, a new service itself, maybe a new process, or it could be a new product or maybe new technology. What happens when you value innovate consistently? You drive sustainable, profitable growth, you increase company value, and you create jobs. What do we guarantee when you use the value innovation process? If there is a blue ocean opportunity for your new product, service, or offering, you will find it. We'll also share that there are blue ocean opportunities in the markets that you serve today. So what are the takeaways? There are at least 14 forms of innovation being practiced today. There are many books published on the subject, and unfortunately, it causes confusion. The term value innovation was first coined in 1997. Blue Ocean Strategy, which was published in 2005, is built on the value innovation platform, and it's sold more than 3 million copies. Value Innovation Works, which starts where Blue Ocean Strategy stops, basically a handbook on value innovation, was published in 2012. Value innovation is delivering exceptional value to the most important customer in the value chain all the time, every time. And when you value innovate consistently, you drive sustainable, profitable growth. Well, thank you for attending today's lecture. I hope you enjoyed it and that you are motivated to go on to the next one, where we will introduce you to the value innovation process. Hello and welcome. This is Dick Lee, and this lecture today is going to focus on the value innovation process. In fact, this is going to be the first of 4 lectures where we're going to take a look at the value innovation process in detail. Recall, our definition of value innovation is delivering exceptional value to the most important customer in the value chain all the time, every time. And in order to do this, we need a process and a set of enabling tools. Let's take our first look at the value innovation process. Here it is. 10 steps, starting with step 1 at the top, moving clockwise to step 10, which is at the 11 o'clock hour position. The key points I want to make today is that the value innovation process is the front end of innovation. We do this before we do anything else. What we're doing is determining what we have to do to deliver exceptional value to that most important customer and our options on how to do it. And once the most important customer has blessed off on one or more of those options, then we can turn this into a project. You'll recall that the first value innovation process was published in 2005, and it was a result of the work that was carried out by up to 40 member companies of the Industrial Research Institute during the period 1999 to 2002. The process has morphed and improved considerably since then, and the latest version now has 10 steps, and each step has a set of enabling tools. It works in small, that could be companies with 10 or less employees. Medium, that would be companies with, let's say, 50 to 500 employees, and large size companies. Works in government agencies, whether they be at the federal, state, or local level, and not-for-profits too. So what I want to do is to introduce you to some new terms and tools. What's in and out of scope? That comes very useful in step 1. What's a value chain and who's the most important customer? That occurs in step 2. Value curves, we'll see those in steps 3 and 5, and then contextual interviewing, which will be used in steps 4, 6, 7, and 10. In the next 3 lectures, we will explain each one of these concepts and tools using some case studies. So let's go to step 1. Define the project mission and objectives. What is it we are trying to achieve? What do we want to accomplish? The key here is to be as specific and quantitative as possible, and also to define what's in scope and what's out of scope. For example, if I own a restaurant, or you own a restaurant, and the goal is to double the size of the business in the next 3 years, but you don't want to add to the existing space, what's out of scope is increasing the size of the restaurant. But what could be in scope is longer opening hours, projects where we specifically focus on what we can do to increase the number of tables that we serve on weekday nights from Monday through Thursday. So what's in a scope and what's out of scope can really be helpful. Let's take the example, let's say, of a medium-sized company that wants to double its size in 5 years. It's got to grow at 15%. The senior leadership team may conclude, we're not going to do this through mergers and acquisitions. So what's out of scope? We can't grow through mergers and acquisitions. What is in scope? Maybe it's moving into markets adjacent to the markets that we currently serve. It might even include we are prepared to go into new businesses where, in fact, we don't have a core competency today. So use what's in scope and what's out of scope to really help the team that's working on this formulate what it is they can do. Step 2 is define the value chain and identify the most important customer in the value chain. And just let me try and help on value chain. The value chain, what it does is identify each entity between you and the ultimate end user that's involved in a buying, selling, using, or specifying transaction. And it's very important that we identify who the most important customer is. If we are operating in the world of business to business, it is more than likely that our most important customer is not our direct customer. So let's look at 2 new concepts here. The value chain itself, remember, each buying, selling, and using or specifying transaction between you and the ultimate end user, and then identifying the most important customer using the 3 questions and the 3-question template. On to step 3, develop as-is and best-in-class value curves. The best way to think about a value curve is it's a graphical representation that summarizes for you what you need to do to deliver this exceptional value. It's an incredible tool. So the 2 new concepts here, value curve with metrics and as-is and best-in-class. What does as-is mean? As-is is the current state. So if you have a product offering now and it's not doing particularly well and you want to do a lot better, you're probably going to put it through the value innovation process. You're going to establish the value that you're delivering to those most important customers now, the current state. We're going to call that as is. Best in class takes a look at the competition. And best in class may in fact not exist. If we're going to, let's say we're an automotive company and we're going to introduce a new car, and we're going to compete with a Honda Accord or a Hyundai Sonata or a Toyota Camry, what we would do is to look at each aspect or attribute that that car has and determine which of those 3 cars performs best in a particular category. It might be performance, it might be fuel economy, or whatever. And so we'll have a value curve which shows us what best in class looks like. It's, if you like, the best of the best. Step 4, the most critically important step of these 10 steps, carrying out the first round of contextual interviews to uncover the unmet needs of the most important customer. So contextual interviewing. And we will in step 4, and I think it's lecture number 5, we will get into contextual interviewing in a major way and show you how a company called Nautilus use these tools most effectively. So what are the takeaways from today's lecture? The first, the value innovation process is the front end of innovation. Second, the first value innovation was published back in 2005. You remember that work from the Industrial Research Institute that was carried out from 1999 to 2002. The value innovation process has morphed considerably since 2005, and the latest version has 10 steps, and each step has a set of enabling tools. It works whether you're a small company, a medium-sized company, or a large company. It works in government agencies, whether you're at the federal, state, or local level, and it works in not-for-profits as well. I hope you've enjoyed today's lecture, you find it intriguing, and you want to go on to the next 3, which will take a look at the tools used in steps 2, 3, and 4 of the value innovation process. We're going to be looking at value chains, most important customers, value curves, and contextual interviewing. Thank you, and have a great rest of the day. Hello, this is Dick Lee. This lecture is going to focus on step 2 of the value innovation process, looking at the development of a value chain and identifying the most important customer. Recall our definition of value innovation is delivering exceptional value to the most important customer in the value chain all the time, every time. And we do that with the 10-step value innovation process and a set of enabling tools. Here are those 10 steps. You saw this in the previous lecture. We're going to focus here on step 2. So the key points I plan to make today, number 1, you need to define your value chains or value webs. We're going to focus specifically on value chains in this lecture, and identify your most important customers. You do that using the 3 questions and the 3-question template. And a cautionary note, if you're in the world of B2B, that's business to business, your most important customer is probably not your direct customer. So we're going to take a look at the value chain, how to use the 3 questions in the 3-question template to identify the most important customer, and identify the most important customer within the most important customer. So what is a value chain? It identifies each company or entity that is involved in a buying, selling, using, or specifying transaction between you and the ultimate end user. Why is this important? Well, because of our definition of value innovation. We're going to deliver this exceptional value to the most important customer in the value chain. We're going to take the example of Folded Pack and their product Expandos. Expandos is a substitute packaging material for bubble wrap and peanuts. It's higher cost than both of them. It's made out of cardboard. It's a 3-dimensional triangle. Its key feature is 2 key features. It's green, 100% recyclable, and the sides of the triangles here have serrated edges, and they lock together with other parts or pieces of Expandos. So when you take your product and stick it into a package and lock the lid down, nothing moves. And Folded Pack will demonstrate this to you by shipping a 12-inch by 12-inch by 12-inch box with a brick, 2 light bulbs, and 2 coffee mugs in it, and nothing is broken when you open it up. It's simply amazing. So back in 2004, when Folded Pack was formed, they saw the world like this. They sold to distributors who bought the machines and sold those machines to manufacturers, and they also bought the feed cardboard material as well. This was their world. They assumed that their most important customer was the distributor. 5 years later, sales, despite the fact that this product had tremendous potential, were very poor, and investors had lost $7 million. They had to do something. So in September 2009, they brought in a value innovation subject matter expert. His name was Brad Fenn. They wanted him to evaluate what was going wrong. What do we have to do to turn this around? Because if we can't, we have to close the doors. The first thing that Brad did was to look at the value chain. Yes, Folded Pack sold to distributors, and there were some key functional areas within that distribution company, purchasing, sales, and marketing. And they were selling to manufacturers. And those in the manufacturing organization who were concerned about packaging, shipping, damage in shipping, and so on, were purchasing, operations, and logistics. So this is his value chain, and then he went to the 3 questions. If there's a problem with your product, service, or offering, who is responsible for taking the action required to fix that problem? Question number 2. Who stands to lose the most financially if there's a problem with your product, service, or offering? And third, who sees the value? So armed with these 3 questions and the value chain that he generated, he drafted the 3-question template. So in the first column, the entities in the value chain, and then in columns 2, 3, and 4, the 3 questions. He asked himself, so who has to fix the problem within the distribution organization? Possibly sales, possibly marketing. Who's likely to see the value? Possibly sales. He wasn't struck by the fact that the distributor had too much skin in the game here, probably not the most important customer. He then went to the manufacturer and considered manufacturers of high value-added fragile products, where in fact damage in transit is a key issue. Would purchasing see the value? Probably. But what about who has to fix the problem? Purchasing can't, operations has to, and logistics has to. Who stands to lose the most financially? Probably operations and logistics, and they would both see the value. So Brad concluded that, in fact, the most important customer was manufacturers of high value-added fragile products, companies like Coors, HP, Amazon, and that within that manufacturer it was operations and or logistics that was the most important customer. Brad also thought that, in fact, there was an opportunity for Folded Pack to sell Expandos to consumers. The reason, quite simply, was this, that if you go to a FedEx store and look at bubble wrap or peanuts, it's very expensive, and the cost disadvantage of Expandos really does not play a role in this. So he looked at, what can we do? Should we go to mass merchants and sell the consumers through them? And if we do, who's the most important customer within that mass merchant? He concluded that these companies, and you can see them there, you can buy Expandos in any one of these locations, the most important customer within those mass merchants is the department merchandiser. We're going to share more with you on Folded Pack and their great success in our next course on Udemy, which is called Value Innovation Process Success Stories. So what are the takeaways from today's lecture? You need to define your value chains or value webs. You need to identify your most important customers using the 3 questions and the 3-question template. And if you are operating in the world of B2B, that's business to business, your most important customer is probably not your direct customer. I hope you've enjoyed today's lecture and see the value in it. Our next lecture is going to focus on step 3 of the value innovation process. We're going to be looking at value curves. Thank you, and have a great rest of the day.
Bye.
Hello, this is Dick Lee. In today's lecture, we're going to focus on step 3 of the value innovation process, where we feature value curves with metrics. You'll recall the definition of value innovation is delivering exceptional value to the most important customer in the value chain all the time, every time. And in order to do that, we need a process and a set of enabling tools. So here's that 10-step process. Our focus today is to take a look at value curves, which are featured in step 3 of the value innovation process. We also use them in step 5 of the value innovation process, but let's stay with step 3 at this point. The key points I want to make in today's lecture: what is a value curve with metrics? It is a graphical display showing what you must do to deliver exceptional value to the most important customer. It's a powerful tool to communicate the value the project team is planning on delivering, and management knows what's going on. Isn't that refreshing? Let's take a look at our first value curve. We're going to produce one here for the Tesla S sedan, which is the best-selling electric car in the world today. So step back, roll the drums. Here is your first value curve. Here is that graphical display. So let's go back now and break this thing down into its basic elements. Value curves with metrics show elements of performance, or if you like, call them attributes, which are rank ordered. Each element of performance has a metric, so we can give an absolute value for each element. You show the value being delivered on a scale. We choose generally to use 1 to 9. Procter & Gamble uses 1 to 100 because most of their market research data is generated using a 1 to 100 scale. And we can show it for the as-is or the current state, best in class, and to be. What is as-is? So if you have a product today, you can, on your value curve, show the value you're delivering for each one of these elements today. To be means the value you're going to deliver tomorrow in a modified product or service. Best in class is literally a situation that may not exist. So let's suppose we're at the Ford Motor Company and we want to develop a new version of the Ford Fusion. We compete with the Toyota Camry, the Honda Accord, and the Hyundai Sonata. Best in class would basically be this. We would look at an element of performance. It could be performance, it could be fuel economy, and so on. What we would do for those 3 cars, the Accord, the Camry, and the Sonata, is look at which is the one that's producing the greatest value. That would be the point on the curve. It may be for the next element that's another car that's producing or delivering that greatest value. So best in class, if you like, represents the best of the best. It, in fact, may be a product that doesn't exist. So suppose you don't have a product or service. You're going to go into a new market and you're going to compete with other people. You don't have a product, so you don't have an as-is value curve. What you would do in this case is plot the curve for the dominant competitor. What is an element of performance? You may prefer to call it attribute, by the way. It's your call. It is a capability or characteristic of the product or service that is important to the most important customer that can be performed or observed in a measurable way. In aggregate, the elements define the total service or product. An element is a succinct statement. It's not an objective. It's not a feature or benefit, and it must be measurable. So let's suppose we're at Stella Artois developing a new beer in Belgium. An objective is improve taste. A feature or benefit is tastes great, but the element of performance is taste. The value curve tells us what we will do with taste. We may do nothing at all. The value being delivered on taste today with our current product may be perfectly fine. So let's go back now to the Tesla S sedan value curve, and I want to point out on the right-hand side There is a red curve. That's for the BMW 7 Series, and the Tesla S sedan is the blue curve. So on the left-hand side, we have listed the elements of performance, and they are rank ordered. So that first element, which unfortunately is performance, is the most important element of performance to the consumer. Drivability is number 2, design is number 3, and at the bottom, leasing options, the least important element of performance to the consumer. On the right-hand side of the value curve, the values on this 1 to 9 scale, 1 is on the left, 9, high, is on the right. The values being delivered on each one of those elements for, in this case, the BMW series and the Tesla S sedan are being displayed. And there are metrics for each element, and that allows you to define absolute values for the project team. So on the one that we're looking at with those 3 arrows, this is maintenance cost. This is the average cost per maintenance event in dollars. So for the BMW 7 Series, it's estimated, my estimate, at $600. The value being delivered by the Tesla S sedan is much, much higher. It's much less expensive. It's going to be around $200. For the purists, and we're going to go back and use blue ocean strategy terms here, what this blue curve for the Tesla S sedan shows us is it is delivering greater value on the top 7 elements of performance, greater value than the BMW 7 Series. What does that tell you? Does that mean that Tesla is swimming in a blue ocean? Do you expect their product to sell at a rapid rate? The answer is yes. The Tesla S sedan is outselling the BMW 7 Series in the United States. You say, boy, this graphical display looks very interesting, but it looks tough to do. I'm not sure if I can do that in Excel or PowerPoint. Well, there's good news. We have a product called Slalom. It's software which allows you to enter up to 30 elements of performance, to rank order them, to plot up to 6 curves, to enter values for each metric, and draw the value curve itself. And it's inexpensive. Rank ordering tools, what are they? Well, you have 3 options in the software. The first one is you rank it yourself, or the team does it itself, and you use the Delphi approach. You literally look at performance and fuel economy and all those other elements that make up the value curve. You decide, hey, I think the most important one is this. It's very quick and easy to do, takes 5 to 10 minutes, not particularly sophisticated. The next approach is to use pairwise comparison, where we look at leasing options versus performance, and we ask which is the more important of those 2 elements to the person buying this car. The answer is performance. To do that with 12 or 13 elements takes about 20 to 40 minutes. The most sophisticated way of doing this is the analytical hierarchy process. We're not going to get into the specifics of that now, but it looks at what is the relative importance of the 2 elements. It's more sophisticated, takes longer to do, probably 1 to 2 hours to do 12 elements of performance. We're going to show you more value curves when we come into our next series on Udemy. It's called the Value Innovation Process Success Stories, and we hope you will go there and take a look at those. They're really exciting. So the learnings. A value curve with metrics is a graphical display showing what you must do to deliver exceptional value to the most important customer. It is a very powerful tool. It allows the project team to communicate to everybody, including senior management, what is going on. I hope you've enjoyed today's lecture. You're excited about value curves. Our next lecture is going to go to step 4 of the value innovation process, where we're going to take a look at contextual interviewing. Thank you for your attendance today. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, this is Dick Lee. Today's lecture is going to focus on the value innovation process, specifically contextual interviewing, which is carried out in 4 steps, steps 4, 6, 7, and 10 of the value innovation process, and our primary emphasis is just going to be on step 4. You'll recall our definition of value innovation is delivering exceptional value to the most important customer in the value chain all the time, every time. And in order to do this, we need a 10-step value innovation process and a set of enabling tools. So here is that value innovation process, and we've now moved to step 4, the first round of 3 contextual interviews that we do. And in this round, we are uncovering the unmet needs of the most important customer. The key points that I want to make today: there are 3 rounds of contextual interviews. Each interview has an interview team, 2 most important customers on the call, and it's 1 hour long. Step 4, where we're uncovering unmet needs, is the most important of the 10 steps of the value innovation process. So contextual interviewing is carried out in step 4, step 6 and 7, and step 10. And what's happening in step 6 and 7 is we're having our most important customers critique the value curves that came out of step 3 and the to-be value curve that came out of step 4. And in step 10, we are actually going back to review with the most important customers, the same 6 pairs, our options on how to deliver the what. So in 4, we're uncovering unmet needs. Coming out of 7, we have a to-be value curve, which tells us what we have to do to deliver the exceptional value. And coming out of step 10, we get the most important customers to share their thoughts on how we plan to deliver the what, and they'll vote for their best case. So in the 3 interviews in step 4, the first one, the focus is divergent. We're asking open-ended questions and we're listening to their responses. Our objective: uncover the unmet needs of those most important customers. In step 6, 7, it is convergent. We're shaping the output from 4, and we're having the most important customers critique the as-is and the to-be value curves. And in step 10, it's convergent. It's defining exactly what it is we're going to do and how we're going to do it. To do contextual interviewing well, you need a plan, well-conceived interview instruments, and a hand-picked cross-functional team. This is the single most important task that you carry out in that 10-step process. It's probably the 3rd time I've said that, but I want to underscore the importance of this step. So let's take a look at the overview of these contextual interview formats. Number 1, we need an interview team. Cross-functional representation is ideal. 4 to 5 members is great. If you're a small company, you probably can't have 4 or 5 members. Maybe it's 1 or 2 or 3. I would not do 1. So at least let's have 2 people on that team. You need to select a lead interviewer, and we're not going to get into the nuts and bolts of that, but there are 2 tools out there, ISPI or KAI, which are ideal for identifying the people that you have in your organization that will make great lead interviewers. Typically, they're extroverts who don't mind asking questions and don't have any problem with not knowing where they're going to be 1 hour from now. There'll be 1 or 2 scribes who are taking notes. This does not have to be co-located, so these 4 team members, 5 team members may have at different locations around the globe. We're going to do this via teleconference. The providers are ReadyTalk, WebEx, GoToWebinar, and many others, but they must have the capability to be able to record what it is that takes place. So recording, yes. Number of interviewees is 2. It's not 1, it's not 3. We've done hundreds of these interviews, and we find that 2 is ideal. It's like a fireside chat, a discussion, much less of a question-answer kind of a grilling approach. Do the interviewees need to be co-located? Not at all. The number of interviews that we're going to carry out, there'll be 3 of them. Remember, we talked about that at the beginning of the lecture. The number of interviews per round is 6, so we will need 12 most important customers, and each interview will be 1 hour long. In terms of the instrument format or questionnaire, there'll be an introduction section, goals, and wrap-up. We will have the central questions, ideally 6. You can have as many as 10, but it's unlikely that you'll make it through 10 questions. And we recommend you send the questionnaire or instrument out ahead of time to the interviewees. In terms of output, what are we going to do with that? Well, we'll have audio recordings, 18 hours worth of recordings. Those need to be stored on a company server. We need to transcribe those recordings, and there are many companies out there that do that. We use an outfit in Santa Monica, California called VerbaLink. The transcribed recordings need to be stored on a company server, and you have an issue that you need to define who has the access rights to this information. The keys to the kingdom for your company are sitting on this server. Let's take a look at Nautilus. They make exercise bikes. Here's an example of one. And as a result of the contextual interviews that they carried out, they were focused on the cardio control unit. And back in June of 2012, this is what that control unit looked like. So let's define the project that Nautilus put in place. They were seeing sales decline in their upright bikes in the first half of 2012, so they wanted to increase the market share of their retail cardio product line. They wanted to know, what will it take to win in this highly competitive market? We want to focus on the consoles. We're going to use the value innovation process to pilot this project, and we're going to uncover customer insights that can be leveraged onto other products. The deliverables. We want a 2B value curve from the perspective of the most important customer. And I'm using Nautilus's words here, not mine. These are Nautilus's words. We want elements of performance ranked and compared to best in class. And we want a plan for how to deliver the 2B value curve elements. The project was kicked off on June 5th, 2012. They had 7 interviews in each round, so they had 14 most important customers. These are users of exercise bikes, and not casual users. These are people who would be riding them 4 or 5 times a week. They wanted to complete each round of interviews within 5 days. So they started round 1 on June 19th and started round 3 on July 17th. They had recommendations on what they were going to do to move forward on this project July 27th. They completed that 10-step value innovation process in just 7 weeks. That's a phenomenal job. Congratulations to Nautilus. So let's look at what Nautilus did in their contextual interviews. They had 7, so that means they had 14 most important customers, 7 interviews. They were conducted over a 5-day period for rounds 1, 2, and 3. There were 2 users on each interview. The users were located across the United States. They owned a piece of cardio equipment, and they worked out consistently at home. Interviews were carried out by phone for rounds 1 and 2, and the round 1 interviews were recorded and transcribed. They used WebEx for the 3rd round interviews so that Nautilus could share the concepts that they had for how they could deliver the what, and the users could see those concepts. Interview questions were sent out 2 to 3 days ahead of time, and the participants, the users, were given a $100 gift card after the 3rd interview. So let's take a look now at the value curve that Nautilus was looking at for these cardio control units. Remember, the most important customer now is the consumer, the user, the participant. And we're now looking at the red curve. The red curve is the value being delivered on those elements of performance back in June of 2012 for that old cardio unit. As a result of the contextual interviews, They knew, Nautilus team knew, that they had to deliver greater value. The whole reason for sales decline is because of that red curve. We're just not delivering the value. So here now is the new unit that came out of the inputs from those 7 pairs of most important customers, the new cardio unit. So here's I think this is the A150 bike. Here is that control unit, which sits on the bike, and here it is, isn't it? It looks fantastic. Learnings. Nautilus conducted 3 rounds of contextual interviews. They followed the value innovation process guidelines. They uncovered the user's unmet needs in step 4 of the value innovation process. They completed the 3 rounds of interviews in just 15 calendar days. That is phenomenal. They introduced the new cardio control unit in 13 months. So the new bikes were starting to show up in the market in September of 2013. The results have been incredible. The sales decline has been reversed. They are now selling them like hot cakes. So what are the options for you on next steps? Well, one might be to purchase the book Value Innovation Works on Amazon. Remember, the retail price is $24.95. I would encourage you to sign up for our next course on Udemy. It's called Value Innovation Process Success Stories, and we will be reviewing 6 cases: Applicare, Chevron, Compassion International and their product Water of Life, Folded Pack and their product Expandos, Nautilus and their line of upright exercise bikes, and Novamen, a company that had an active ingredient used in toothpaste that was ultimately acquired by GlaxoSmithKline. Thank you for attending this course. I hope you've enjoyed it. More importantly, derive real value from it. If you have, or if you haven't, would you please go online, back to Udemy, and share your thoughts by completing a review of this course. Thank you all. Thank you again. Have a great rest of the day.